Welcome, welcome, welcome. I would like to welcome you to episode 483 of the Unpopular Podcast. This is the man, the myth, the legend, Jalen Hunter. Here at the Unpopular Podcast, I'm not only asked to agree with me, I'm asked you to hear me out. Let me first say this. Nothing, and I mean nothing, about what happened at the NFL awards this year was shocking to me. Nothing was shocking. I'm not shocked that Jared Curse, the incredible pass rusher for the Rams, won Defensive Rookie of the Year. I'm not shocked that Jaden Daniels won Offensive Rookie of the Year. They threw out names like Bo Nix this year. They threw out names like Brock Bowers. Both had incredible seasons. But it was Jaden Daniels pretty much from the start to the end. So I'm not shocked about that. I'm not shocked that Patrick Surtain won Defensive Player of the Year. I think that was a really close race. You could have gave it to Derek Stingley. You could have gave it to Myles Garrett. You could have gave it to TJ Watt again. But I'm not surprised that Patrick Surtain II won Defensive Player of the Year. I'm not surprised that Saquon Barkley won Offensive Player of the Year. I think was the ninth player ninth running back in NFL history to rush for over 2,000 yards, was 100 yards short or something like that from breaking the all-time record. Incredible season. I'm not surprised. I'm not even shocked that Joe Burrow won Comeback Player of the Year. Second time he did that, by the way. I've been saying this all year. If the Cincinnati Bengals record was better, I would not be shocked if he received more votes, and I probably would have said he was the MVP if it wasn't for his team and their record not being as great as other people's. But I'm not shocked that he won AP Comeback Player of the Year. You could have said someone like Sam Darnold might have won it. You could have said anybody, but I understand Joe Burrow. Before I keep going, I also understand if it would have went to somebody else in a lot of these categories. Like for the Offensive Player of the Year, I wouldn't be upset if Jamar Chase won the Triple Crown or obtained the Triple Crown, most passing yards, most passing touchdowns, and most catches. Like I wouldn't be shocked. Jamar Chase had an incredible season. Again, for the Offensive Rookie of the Year, I wouldn't be shocked if Brock Bowers won it. He had an incredible season. One of the best seasons a rookie tight end has ever had. I'm not shocked that Kevin O'Connell won Coach of the Year. Nobody expected the Vikings to be as good as they were this year. You could have thrown out maybe Dan Quinn. You could have thrown out maybe Dan Campbell. Maybe Mike Tomlin until obviously the end of the season, but I'm not shocked that Kevin O'Connell won. And most of all, I'm not shocked that Josh Allen won the MVP. I'm not even upset that Josh Allen won the MVP. I know if you go on my Twitter and you see what I was tweeting when it happened, it looked like I was upset. I wasn't. This entire portion of this episode is going to sound like I'm crapping on the season that Josh Allen had, and that's not true. I think Josh Allen had an MVP caliber season. I think Josh Allen had an incredible season. I said this back during the season that I wouldn't be shocked if Josh Allen won. What he did with the Buffalo Bills, especially seeing how many important pieces they lost, I'm not shocked that Josh Allen was named and considered to be this year's MVP. But with me not being shocked doesn't mean that I believe that was the right decision. With me being shocked me not being shocked doesn't mean that I don't see issues with what's being discussed. The NBA and the NFL find themselves with an issue. The NBA has had this issue for a while now, but you're starting to see these last few years the NFL adopt those issues. And that is consistency. I'm not saying that the criteria has to be correct. 100% correct. I do think there has to be some correctness, but I'm not saying that the criteria has to be 100% correct. But what I'm saying is there has to be a criteria in how we decide these awards. There has to be a criteria in how we decide year after year who wins these awards. Because the word that people are hung up on right now is valuable. I think Josh Allen was one of the most valuable players when we talk about to his team, when we talk about to the NFL. I'm not here saying that Josh Allen was just trash. I'm not here saying that Josh Allen wasn't important. But I'm also saying, okay, if Josh Allen was the most valuable, that means he was the best player in the league this year, right? You see the slippery slope here? Because all metrics, all the stats would say that Lamar Jackson was the best player this year. And even if you watch, because I hear a lot of people say, just watch the film. Even if you watch the film, there is one person that jumps out as being the best player this year, and that was Lamar Jackson. His stats back it up. Historically, that backs it up. Lamar Jackson has proven this year that he was the best player in football. I'm not saying, obviously, people want to throw out Patrick Mahomes, right? And obviously, people want to say, well, Patrick Mahomes is always the best player. I understand that. And I do believe that if we were doing an ultimate draft and you had a number one overall pick and you were trying to build a team, Patrick Mahomes is going 9.5 times, probably going 10 times out of 10. But if we talk about year-to-year basis, I don't think that there should be any question that Lamar Jackson, if you look at the stats, if you look at where his team landed, if you look at the importance of his presence on that team, Lamar Jackson was the best player this year in football. And to be completely honest, it wasn't even close. But let's talk about that valuable word. Because do I think that Josh Allen was the most valuable player to the Bills? Of course. I don't think that the Bills would have been the number 2 seed in the AFC. I don't think the Bills would have been nearly as good if it wasn't for Josh Allen. But this is when I say the league, the NFL, the NBA for a while now has a problem. Because everything I'm saying can go or could have been said last year. Because I'm standing on my high horse saying, yo, Lamar Jackson deserved to be the MVP. Look at the stats. But if you look at the stats from last year, when Lamar Jackson won the MVP, you could say Josh Allen, Dak Prescott had better stats. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. Well, someone can say, well, look at strength of schedule. Lamar Jackson had a tougher strength of schedule than Josh Allen and Josh Allen and Dak Prescott last year. He also had a tougher strength of schedule this year than Josh Allen. And exceeded. In fact, they went head to head. Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens went up against Josh Allen in the week 3 or something in the NFL season, and completely embarrassed the Bills. Look, shouts out to Josh Allen, man. Shouts out, Josh Allen had an incredible season. When we hear about moments, right? We talk about Heisman moments. Moments that you can point to a player and said, that's the moment, or these are the moments that won him the Heisman. Last year, or this year, or last year, Travis Hunter won the Heisman. And you can look at several moments that said that won him the Heisman. The MVP has those moments as well. You have to justify why somebody won these awards. Like if you go back, you can justify why Saquon Barkley won the Offensive Player of the Year. He was, I think, the 9th running back to run for over 2,000 yards. That is a moment. He was 100 yards away or something like that from breaking the all-time rushing record that's held by Eric Dickerson. The only reason why he did it is because he sat out the last game. But going up against the Giants, I believe the last game, it's pretty. Obviously, we don't know, but it's kind of implied that it would have happened. Or you can talk about when Saquon Barkley literally hopped over a human being backwards. Or going up against the Rams and he busted out for 2, I think, 60-plus yard runs. Saquon Barkley had moments that you can point to say that is why he earned and won the Offensive Player of the Year. Josh Allen has, in my opinion, a moment that won him this year's 2 moments that won him this year's MVP. Beating Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, and the snow game against the 49ers when I think Amari Cooper had it and then he pitched it back. So Josh Allen had a reception touchdown, or receiving touchdown, a rushing touchdown, and a passing touchdown all in one play. I don't know how the hell that happened, but it happened. So those are moments. 2 moments. Now, I'm not saying that Josh Allen didn't have a good year, but we're talking about moments. Well, I'm not going to count them all because there was a lot of them, but let's count some of the moments. Let's recall some of the moments that Lamar Jackson had. You can talk about the game against Cincinnati when I think Sam Hubbard thought he had him down, or Trey Hendrickson thought he had a sack when he didn't, and it turned into a Lamar Jackson touchdown to Isaiah Likely. You can talk about the shootout that Lamar Jackson had twice against, I think they were down 10 and came back and won against the Cincinnati Bengals. You could talk about the Christmas Day game where Lamar Jackson had an incredible rushing touchdown. Or you can talk about the bomb that he threw. I don't remember exactly who it was or who it was against, but it was to Rashad Bateman. What I'm saying is, what is the criteria? The issue is the criteria continues to change. There's a reason why you see a lot of people on social media calling this a quote-unquote DEI MVP or Joel Embiid MVP. Joel Embiid won the MVP a couple years ago, and he had a phenomenal season. But he didn't have a better season than Nikola Jokic. I also want to address voter fatigue. which is a real thing. Voter fatigue for sure is a real thing. Voters get tired of voting for the same person, even if the same person deserves that award. Do you know how many MVPs LeBron James would have had if there wasn't quote unquote voter fatigue? Do you know how many MVPs Michael Jordan would have had if it wasn't quote for voter fatigue? I understand voter fatigue. I get it. But that should not dictate who wins and who doesn't. It's who's the most deserving. I don't care if you get tired of something. If they deserve it, they should win. Nikola Jokic didn't win that MVP because of voter fatigue, and they didn't want Nikola Jokic to be the second player in NBA history to three-peat. The first one being Larry Bird. But everyone, look, Joel Embiid had an incredible season, but there was a player that was better than him. You can argue the year James Harden won the MVP. You can even argue the year that Russell Westbrook won the MVP. While I think that they were really deserving, you can say maybe LeBron James should have won the one that James Harden won. You can say probably LeBron James could have won the one that Russell Westbrook won. I'm not taking away. I'm just saying voter fatigue shouldn't hinder somebody's season just because you're tired of voting for them. It is almost criminal that Lamar Jackson had the record break. He had a historic season. Historic. I think first player ever to pass for over 4,000 yards and rush for 900 plus yards. I think had the fourth best touchdown to interception ratio of all time. Fourth best ever, I believe. Leading the Ravens to the third overall seed in the AFC. Being just the third player in NFL history to be voted for the first team All-Pro. And those same people that voted for Lamar Jackson being first team All-Pro are the same people that voted Josh Allen MVP. So Lamar Jackson was the third player in NFL history to make the All-Pro first team, but lose the MVP to the All-Pro second team. So the voters said Lamar Jackson had a better year than Josh Allen. But Josh Allen is the MVP. Make it make sense. Again, I'm not shocked, especially when you hear a lot of people that you watched on TV and you heard their breakdown almost all year heap praise on Josh Allen. And rightfully so. Again, Josh Allen had a great season. But what is hard for me to understand, and it's hard for me to wrap my head around is, did you give it to Josh Allen because he had a great season? Or because he didn't have anything and you felt bad for him? Because if you look at Joe Burrow at least has a Super Bowl appearance. If you look at Lamar Jackson, he has 2 MVPs. If you look at Patrick Mahomes, he has Super Bowls. He has MVPs. When we talk about the pantheon of quarterbacks in the league, those are the 4 that we constantly go to. Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Joe Burrow. Josh Allen's the only one that had nothing. So did you give it to Josh Allen because you felt, We can't keep hyping him up as a top 4 quarterback, but he doesn't have anything that the other 3 have. He doesn't have anything. I think that had to be the reason why you give it to Josh Allen, because if you say it's because he had the best season, well, that would be false, because these are the same people that said, well, Lamar Jackson was better than him because they put him in first team All-Pro. And if you look at the numbers, Lamar Jackson, outside of rushing touchdown, was better than Josh Allen in damn near every category. So was it voter fatigue? Or was it a sympathy vote? Because if it was a sympathy vote and voters fatigue, well then how can you say that that the right person got the MVP? I don't know. Josh Allen had a phenomenal season. Josh Allen had an MVP caliber season. Lamar Jackson had the best season of any player this year. Lamar Jackson had an MVP season. Yet, as we sit here today, the NFL awards are over. Lamar Jackson, for his incredible year, historic year, has nothing to show for it. But hey, shouts out to Josh Allen for getting his first MVP. Good for you, bro. Speaking of that, I'm going to talk about the Super Bowl in a second. But I want to talk about the NBA. I want to address and talk about the NBA free agency. And not free agency, I'm sorry, the NBA trade deadline, and how this was probably one of the most active deadlines we've seen in a while. I'm not going to do the uniformal winners, losers. I'm going to talk about some winners. I'm going to talk about some losers, but I want to go a little bit in depth. Because there was so much movement. We've already discussed Luka and the Anthony Davis trade. If you want to go see that, it's, I talked about it last episode. I did an emergency pod about it when it happened. Go check those out. So I'm probably going to stay away from the Luka Doncic, Anthony Davis trade because I've talked about it ad nauseum. Let's first talk about, I think, the most seismic trade. And it's most seismic because of everything that led up to this trade. And that is Jimmy Butler going from the Miami Heat to the Golden State Warriors and then signing a 2-year extension, I believe. But the main piece that the Heat received was Andrew Wiggins. I think that Jimmy Butler is an extraordinary player. I think that Jimmy Butler makes the Golden State Warriors better. But I don't think that Jimmy Butler is at a point of his career where he puts them over the top. I'm not taking anything away from playoff Jimmy. There's a reason why it's called playoff Jimmy, because his game skyrockets and goes exponentially to a different height in the playoffs. I mean, he led the Heat to 2 NBA finals. They didn't win it, but he led them there. But I can't sit here and talk about this trade and not see how this can't be good for the league. And I think that this whole Jimmy Butler saga will have a negative impact on the league moving forward. The NBA is one of, I think, 2 or 3 leagues that has a salary cap. I think one of 2, 3, because we're talking about WNBA. And while it's one of 3 leagues that has a salary cap, it also has fully guaranteed contracts. Well, this is the Bulls, Sixers, Timberwolves, and now Heat. This is the 4th team that Jimmy Butler essentially blew up when he didn't get his way. And while, don't get me wrong, I understand why he may have felt a certain type of way with all of those organizations. I understand why he felt some type of way with the Bulls towards the end. I definitely understand why he felt some type of way with the 76ers. I understand why he felt some type of way with the Timberwolves. And I understand why he felt some type of way with the Miami Heat. But here's my issue. And here's where I think it can get a little detrimental. You know what'll stop all this? You know what could stop all this? Non-guaranteed contracts. Because it's like, why am I giving you this money in guarantees, but then you're going and saying, I'm not going to play? And you're essentially forcing their hand to suspend you. Look, I've talked about this before, and I feel that Jimmy Butler has a point, especially if the NBA is one of the only places that kind of straddles the line between paying people for what they've done and paying people for what they're doing or what they will do. I think Jimmy Butler is past the point, or was past the point when we talk about the Heat and paying for what I'm going to do. He was looking for, pay me for what I've done. That's the issue that Klay Thompson had with the Golden State Warriors. And while that's fine and good, and I have no problem with that, especially when you decide what you're going to decide as an organization, Jimmy Butler can't keep dictating where he goes this way, because owners are about to say, you know what? Why are we keep giving these players guaranteed contracts for them to turn around and do stuff like this? I don't think any other player would go to the extreme as Jimmy Butler. But remember, Le'Veon Bell in the NFL sat out a whole season. And those are non-guaranteed contracts. So what do you think about that? Oh boy. Let's just talk about the trade. I do think that both teams are winners. I think that the Golden State are winners. One thing that the Golden State has struggled with all year, we've talked about this, and this is even when they were 12-3, I said I think the ball is going to drop soon. Because when you have players playing outside of the norm, when you have players playing exceptionally that maybe aren't used to or maybe don't understand that what you're doing right now is not sustainable. You see, there's a difference between superstar, star, and good players. The difference between a superstar and a star is you know what you're going to expect from a superstar. On top of that, the best a superstar can give you can lead your team to exponential heights. I think there are levels of superstardom, but when you're a superstar and you play your best, your team has a great shot, not only of winning the game, but going far. Steph Curry is still a superstar. LeBron James, Kevin Durant, who we'll talk about in a second, Nikola Jokic, Giannis, superstars. Luka Doncic, superstars. The difference between a superstar and a star is a star, you know what you're going to get from a star, but their best might not be a superstar level. For instance, Giannis is a star, or superstar, I'm sorry. Jaylen Brown, I think, is a star. I don't think he's a superstar. I think Jaylen Brown's best, and no offense to him, I mean, he's a Eastern Conference Finals MVP. He's a Finals MVP. He's a champion. I don't think Jaylen Brown's best is on the same level as a Giannis or Nikola Jokic or Steph Curry or a Luka. Still great. But I just don't, And then you have a good player. Why am I saying all this? Because a lot of Golden State's good players was playing like stars and superstars. The issue was that's not who they are. And once the ball dropped, as we saw, it got ugly. And it's still sort of ugly for Golden State, which showed that they do not have a second scorer. They don't have a second star. You thought it was going to be someone like Brandon Pozinski, or they hoped it was going to be someone like Brandon Pozinski. They hoped it was going to be someone like Jonathan Kuminga. For a good portion of the season, it was Andrew Wiggins, but again, Andrew Wiggins is a good player. He's not a star, nor is he a superstar. So Golden State needed a second person to depend on, because if you look at a lot of Steph Curry's numbers, the reason why he's having a statistical down year is because it's easy for teams to defend Golden State. It's just face guard and double team Steph Curry. We don't care about nothing else. If we lose because Buddy Hield has 30 points, then hey, we'll just shake their hand. But we are not going to let Steph Curry kill us. So, which is why you see games where he goes in the half with 2 points. This is why you see games where he's 5 for 20 from three. It's like they're defending him differently. Well, when you add Jimmy Butler, it gives you another star. While no, Jimmy Butler is not Kyrie in a sense of scoring. Jimmy Butler is a person that can create his own shot. Jimmy Butler is a person that can demand attention from the defense. And on top of that, you don't have to give up as much as you would think. You still get to keep Jonathan Kuminga. You still get to keep Draymond Green. I think that was a win for Golden State. Now, every time we've seen Jimmy Butler act unruly, let's say, is because he didn't get what he wanted. Mostly either being a contract extension, whatever. Well, him signing a 2-year contract, it's like, okay, we at least have him for 2 years. So, which is, you would think is the window, corresponds with the window of Steph Curry's prime-ish. So I do think it was a win for Golden State and for the Heat. Andrew Wiggins is a good player. Andrew Wiggins was a very important piece to the 2022 Golden State Warriors, which ultimately won the championship. The run that Andrew Wiggins had in the playoffs immortalizes him in Golden State forever. But the Heat were trying desperately to get off of Jimmy Butler. And to do that and get a player like Andrew Wiggins, Andrew Wiggins is not on the same caliber as Jimmy Butler, you're hoping that someone like Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero, who was selected for his first All-Star game, you hope that they're the leaders, and then Andrew Wiggins is a perfect complement. One thing that we've seen about Andrew Wiggins is if he's the number 1 or 2 option, your team's not going nowhere. But if he's a 3rd or 4th option like he was in 2022, then you're maximizing the best player. So, or you're maximizing his best. So I think that as crazy as everything that went down happened with Jimmy Butler, I do think that both the Miami Heat and the Golden State Warriors is a winner. Which kind of brings me to my first, let's say, essential loser. I have to look at the Phoenix Suns. I understand why Kevin Durant didn't want to go back to Golden State. I get it. The first time he went, he was killed and ridiculed. And then it didn't end the prettiest. Almost every single time something bad happened with Golden State, Kevin Durant got most of the blame. And like I said, with him and Draymond Green, I get it. But here's my thing. There is a beauty and an importance of transparency when you're dealing with certain players. I think the basketball world, especially when you see what happened with Luka, they understand first and foremost that the NBA, the NFL, whatever organization or whatever sport they're playing, is a business. So when you see someone like Luka get traded, you understand that no one's safe. You heard that sentiment a lot, whether you talk about Anthony Edwards, whether you talk about KD and Devin Booker. No one is safe because it's all about business. We understand that. But when you understand the type of player that Kevin Durant is, I don't think it's smart to shop him behind his back or allow him to hear from external sources that his name is being tossed around in trade talks. I think Joe Lacob said it. I respect Golden State for not pulling the trigger on Kevin Durant. It wasn't the Suns that said, you know what, Kevin Durant doesn't want to go here. No. It was Kevin Durant one saying, I don't want to go back to Golden State. But it was Golden State essentially saying, you know what, if Kevin Durant doesn't want to be here, we don't want a disgruntled star. We're just gonna move in a Jimmy Butler direction. But now, when you hear reports about the Suns, it's not a healthy locker room right now because you have a disgruntled star. You technically have 2 disgruntled stars because they were trying desperately, from what reports are saying, they were trying desperately to get off of Bradley Beal, but the league, the Wizards, man. The Wizards just broke the league with giving Bradley Beal a no trade clause. So you have one player that they're trying to get rid of, but he ultimately has to say so. And then you have Devin Booker. And then you have Kevin Durant that doesn't want to leave, that is happy with the situation that he's in, and that is balling. He's been your first or second best player all season, and you put him in trade talks. So, look, that's the risk that you run. If you are going to throw a star's name out there in trades, you better hope that you're able to seal the deal. You better hope that player gets traded, because if not, do you know how awkward it is to go back into a locker room and say, well, I know we tried, but welcome back. Like, it don't work that way, man. Anybody would be like, hold on, bro. You just tried to trade me. Get out of my face. So, with a team that's already been lackluster this year, a team that has struggled mightily this year, and now you throw the fact of, yeah, well, we tried to trade two of our three best players. We did get Nurkic out of here, but you got him for pretty much nothing. So two of our three best players, we just tried to get out of here, was unsuccessful. So they got to come back and play. Man, the Suns, major losers, bro, because you essentially tainted. I get what Richard Jefferson say. You just play at this point, but you tainted the locker room. Especially when you weren't up front and saying, "Yo, Kevin, we're looking to trade you," or we're. I think if you would have went to Kevin Durant, he probably would have still felt some type of way, but I think it would have showed a higher level of respect. Like, yeah, we respect you, bro, but we're gonna have to go a different direction, But you didn't. So now you're hearing. I think Ramona Shelburne, shout out to her. She's saying that it's a toxic feel in the locker room right now. And I understand. Like, nigga, you just tried to trade me, bro. Without telling me. Nah. I think the biggest winner in this entire trade deadline isn't the Lakers, even though the Lakers got Luka. Isn't the Wizards that got a bunch of freaking players. I think the biggest winner was the Cavs. A lot of people don't watch the Hawks. That's plain and simple. A lot of people don't watch the Hawks, and if they do watch the Hawks, they really only focus on Trae Young. And we're going to talk about Trae Young in a second, but they only focus on Trae Young. They don't focus on really the entire team. DeAndre Hunter has been one of the most consistent players for the Hawks. When you talk about his defense, which first and foremost, he's one of the best on-ball defenders in basketball, and his offense is getting better year after year after year. Well, you trade him to the Cavaliers, who their biggest issue was trying to find a defender or a 3-and-D player that can play. I'm not going to say carry them offensively because DeAndre Hunter isn't that, but can explode offensively any given night. DeAndre Hunter does that for them. So now you pair him alongside Donovan Mitchell, who isn't the best defender. I will say this. Darius Garland, who's not the best defender, but the DeAndre Hunter, Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen is probably the best front court defense the league has to offer. I don't think that is a scary front court. Like, you have at least you have all three of them could be defensive player of the year candidates. That is tough. And I think it's been a 4-team race at this point. Yeah, the Bucks did start off bad, but they did win the in-season tournament. Giannis and Dame are playing phenomenally together. So it's pretty much been a 4-team race. It's been the Celtics, it's been the Knicks, the Bucks, and the Cleveland Cavaliers. And the question has been, do we think the Cleveland Cavaliers can keep this up? Keep up their record, keep up, being one of the best teams in basketball. Well, one thing that we know is offense can wither. There can be nights where Donovan Mitchell goes for 40, 50 points. Darius Garland goes for 40, 50 points. Then there can be nights where they can't throw a rock in the ocean. But one thing that should never have to wane is your defense. And when you get someone like DeAndre Hunter alongside Evan Mobley, alongside Jared Allen, I think that they have a good shot, especially when you play someone like the Bucks and know that Giannis is always a north and south player. And then now you can, even though there's still sort of a mismatch due to height and speed, but you can put DeAndre Hunter on someone like Damian Lillard. Or you can put DeAndre Hunter on someone like Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown. So I think that this was a huge win for the Cleveland Cavaliers. But then I have Trae Young. And while I think the Cleveland Cavaliers was probably the biggest winner of this entire trade deadline, now I would say the Suns are probably the biggest losers in the trade deadline. The second biggest loser has to be Trae Young. How many years is Trae Young's name going to be in trade talks, trade rumors? It's been like that almost for the last 3 to 4 years. And it seems like with the Hawks pretty much giving up DeAndre Hunter and getting back someone like Karis LeVert, and the Hawks being the definition of middle of the pack, I don't know what Trae Young has to do to get up out of there. You'd think that, again, I heard going into this trade deadline, you even gave up Bogdanovich. So you give up DeAndre Hunter, you give up Bogdanovich. It's like, okay, looks like they're ready for the inevitable. They're ready to blow this up. Because I don't care what you say. This team is not good. And this team is not doing anything in the playoffs. So let's cut our losses now. And you can probably get a lot for Trae Young. You know how many teams in the league going into the trade deadline needed a guard? So you could have got a pretty penny for him. And this is yet another trade deadline where came and went and Trae Young is still on the Hawks. It's just like, all right, bro. Don't get me wrong. I think Trae Young is great. And I think Trae Young is one of the best guards in the league. But that's not leading to anything. And if you're already going to trade away arguably your second and third best player, that means you're kind of barreling into a rebuild, brother. So I don't get it, man. I don't get it. At least you got Trey Mann and Bones Highland. But then again, what is Bones Highland going to do alongside Trey? You get much worse defensively. Karis LeVert, much worse defensively. And, yeah. I don't know, man. I think Trae Young just continues to lose, man. Any trade deadline, any offseason that comes and goes where he is still a Hulk. Yeah, no. I think Trae Young, I know that there's been a negative stigma around him, but I think that he can be the missing piece of a team that just needs a point guard. Like, let me see. Do you know what Trae Young would look like if he was on the Timberwolves? Trae Young alongside Anthony Edwards. Don't get me wrong. Shouts out to Mike Conley, but Trae Young is a little different. I don't know, man. Um, I guess we can talk about the Lakers for a second. Trading Dalton Knecht, Cam Reddish for Mark Williams. The Lakers went into this trade deadline focused, in my opinion, on, well, first and foremost, I don't think anyone woke up the day they woke up and thought they were going to get Luka. So once you get Luka and you trade away Anthony Davis, it's like I'm not going to say you don't care about the right now. You're building for post LeBron, because I think you have 2, maybe 3 good years left of LeBron before he calls it quits. I don't think he's going to call it quits when he's just bad. I don't know if LeBron, I don't think that's ever going to happen, but I think that, he's getting up there. Like he's 40. So trading Dalton Knecht was major, but I do think it's funny that Anthony Davis was preaching to the top of his lungs about they need a big man, and they wait to trade Anthony Davis to get a big man. I think Mark Williams, he is a Clint Capella type player. He's someone that can catch lobs and play pretty good defense, rim protecting. And him and Luka, it kind of gives Luka a Daniel Gafford type player. Because let's not get it twisted. Luka is the best player right now and is the future for the Lakers. So, yeah, I'm shocked because Dalton Knecht had some pretty good games, even though he was very inconsistent. He's a rookie, so you don't expect much consistency. But I do think that all of the moves that the Lakers have done is about the future, not about right now. Because if it was about right now, you wouldn't have given up Anthony Davis. You wouldn't have given up some of the players that you gave up. So, And I think the last trade, again, there was a lot of trades, bro. A lot of them. The last one I want to talk about 2 people in conjunction. I want to talk about Chris Middleton and Kyle Kuzma. As much as you want to admit it, it is the end of an era for the Bucks. Chris Middleton essentially getting traded for Kyle Kuzma. I don't know what's going to happen with Chris Middleton. He seems like even though you've heard reports that they're going to keep him, but he seems like a prime buyout candidate. But the Bucks, I don't know if Kuzma makes the Bucks that much better because some of his just erratic play. As a Wizards fan, trust me, I know. But it signals the end for the Chris Middleton, Giannis era. And it was an incredible one, man. Yeah, man. I think the Bucks are good. I guess that gives them a third score that Chris Middleton, due to injuries and age, just wasn't able to be for them right now or anymore. Or maybe they didn't have the patience for him to get fully healthy, which I understand. When you have a window that consists of Giannis and Dame, it's like that's not a Giannis is a bigger window, but for Dame it's not. So I get it. And Kuzma can give you some good points. It's just defensively he gives you absolutely nothing. And some of his decision making is head scratching to say the least. But they also get Jericho Sims, which helps with a backup center. So we'll see. That's been the trade. Again, I'm not going to go over every trade. I'm not going to go over everything, but those are some of my thoughts for the trade deadline. It was a very active one. One of the most active ones we've seen in the last 3 years. So, hold up. Dennis Schroeder getting traded 3-4 times in 24 hours is crazy. But here's my thing. Dennis, I understand you're French. Let's talk about this for a second. You can't call your employer, or you can't, if you're an employee of somebody, right? And every player is an employee essentially of a team that is an employee of the NBA. You can't throw out parallels to the NBA trade deadline and the trade market essentially and slavery, bro. Like, trust me, I see where you're coming from. And I'm not saying you're wrong. But you can't publicly compare your employer to slavery and think you're about to be on that team. Like, they did him one better. They traded him 3 or 4 times in less than 24 hours. So you might as well just stay in Golden State and just wait. Man. Let me give my Super Bowl prediction, man. Every metric says the Eagles should win this game. The Eagles have a better team. I think they have, player for player. I think the Eagles have arguably the best team in basketball or in football. They have more complementary players. They have more players that can step up in huge moments, whether we talk about defensively, Jalen Carter, you have Braun, you have Darius Slay on the offensive side, obviously A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts. Every metric points to the Eagles winning this game. Hell, last time they played, if it wasn't for a defensive play and Jalen Hurts fumbling the ball that ultimately resulted in a touchdown, the Eagles, in fact, Jalen Hurts was probably played the best out of everyone that game. He just wasn't mistake-free. So it's hard to beat a team that probably should have beat you the first time. It's hard to beat them again in the Super Bowl, especially when you see what Saquon Barkley's doing. Every metric says the Eagles should win this game. And that's exactly why I think the Kansas City Chiefs are going to win this game. I understand what we've seen all year. But let me remind you that the Chiefs, obviously they played a different team. They played the San Francisco 49ers. But the Chiefs were worse last year than this year. We're talking about a team that, when fully healthy and everyone playing, only lost one game this year, and that was against the Bills. Only one. Now, yes, I understand that they had a bunch of close games. They had a bunch of one-possession games. Obviously, they had kicked field goals, missed field goals. They had the other team fumble. There was a lot of crazy ways that they won games, but they found ways to win. On top of that, Hollywood Brown is back. Xavier Worthy is good. You still have Travis Kelce. Isaiah Pacheco's back. The Chiefs' offensive line has been awful all year until I think they moved Joe Tooney out. Like, I think that the Chiefs and the Eagles have the players to make their opponents become one-dimensional. Meaning, the Chiefs have the ability, I think, to slow down, not stop, but slow down someone like Saquon Barkley, meaning you're going to make Jalen Hurts have to beat you. Now, yes, you have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Like, those are incredible players. But you want Jalen Hurts to beat you. I don't. I The Eagles have a great defensive line, and I don't think the run game is going to be all that tough or all that important for the Chiefs. But I'm gonna go back to the game, to the NFC Championship against the Commanders. I think if you take the turnovers out, it's a lot close. It's a much closer game, and I don't think the Chiefs are gonna have those type of turnovers, those type of blunders. I could be wrong. I don't think so. And I, along with damn near everyone, has counted the Chiefs out all year. And they're going into this game with 2 losses, one of which Patrick Mahomes and nobody played, which is the last game of the season. There's also a little bit of bias in me in the sense of I can't see myself as a Commanders fan, as an NFC East team. I can't see myself rooting for the Eagles, but as what's the word? As unbiased as I can be, I understand that if you're going off metrics and you're going off the eye test, everything screams the Eagles to win the Super Bowl. But I'm also seeing Patrick Mahomes is playing the best football that he's played all year, and they only lost 1 game when everyone was playing. Yeah. And on top of that, Spags is probably the best defensive coordinator. The Eagles, not Commanders, what the hell? The Kansas City Chiefs has the best coaching staff as one unit in all of football. I'm talking about Andy Reid, Spags, like the best unit. On top of that, you have some great players. Kanofskis, you have Kalofkis, I'm sorry. You have Chris Jones. It's going to be tough, man. I've been one of those people that bet against the Chiefs almost all year, and they've turned me into a fool every year. So I think I'm going to go with Kansas City Chiefs beating the Eagles. I think has been a problem for the Kansas City Chiefs all year. If you're able to get to Patrick Mahomes, if you're able to sack him, get to him, you have a shot. Travis Kelce isn't the same that he's been, even though he still can be reliable and had a really good game against the Bills. And that defense, that offensive line hasn't been great, at least all season. The last, I'll say, 3 or 4 weeks has been pretty good, or 3 or 4 games, I'll say it's been pretty good. But if the Eagles are able to get to Patrick Mahomes, then the Eagles have a great shot. But I remember that first drive in the NFC Championship, and if the Jaden Daniels and the offense was just going up and down the field, it's just they kept turning the ball over. I think you're going to go up against a better quarterback at this time and a better offense. So, yeah, I'm going to go with I think the Kansas City Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl. We'll see. Lastly, before we go, we have the unpopular topic of the day. I talked about the NFL awards, and one thing that I left out was the Hall of Fame inductees. Now, obviously, there's a bunch of people that are submitted and there are candidate finalists, but I think they only pick from like 5 to 9 players. The people that were elected into this year's Pro Football Hall of Fame was Eric Allen, Jared Allen, Antonio Gates, and Sterling Shepard, all of which are more than deserving. Sterling Shepard, I know a lot of people are going to look at Sterling Shepard and be like, how the hell did he make. But Sterling Shepard, he was forced to retire early because like a neck injury. Before then, he was tough. Like, he was one of the best receivers the league has ever seen if it wasn't for those injuries. So I understand completely why Sterling Shepard. Antonio Gates, he's probably the most consistent tight end we've ever seen. Jared Allen, what he did on the Vikings. Everyone was deserving. I think the two names that have people up in arms is Adam Vinatieri, or the two names that didn't make it this year is Adam Vinatieri and Eli Manning. Adam Vinatieri is pretty much the Tom Brady of kickers. He is the best kicker, like by far, in NFL history. You can say Justin Tucker, but he got a lot going on right now. But there's really, it's pretty much Adam Vinatieri. So the fact that he didn't get in is kind of crazy, at least for the first time. But then you have Eli Manning. And people are up in arms saying, how is Eli Manning not a first ballot Hall of Famer? Do I think that Eli Manning is eventually going to be in the Hall of Fame? Yes. Do I think that Eli Manning should be in the Hall of Fame? Yes. Do I think that he's good enough to be a first ballot Hall of Famer? No. I look at Eli Manning just in some aspects the same way I look at Jimmy Butler. There's a reason why we say playoff Jimmy, because he just turns it up in the playoffs. Eli Manning has never been considered the best quarterback in the league. I don't think he's ever received an MVP vote. He's led the league in interceptions 3 times in his career. He's had multiple losing seasons, including, I think, his last one. In fact, the only thing that he has is 2 Super Bowl wins, and both of them are against Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. Now, one of those halted a undefeated season. The other one, I think the Patriots were better in both, but we got the David Tyree catch. Eli Manning balled out. I'll say that. But that's it. I think being a two-time Super Bowl champion, I think, if I'm not mistaken, he's also a 2-time Super Bowl Finals MVP or Super Bowl MVP, I believe. But I don't think that that's good enough to get you first ballot. And obviously neither do they. I think Eli Manning is, the thing that got Peyton Manning in the outside of the 2 Super Bowls, because he has the same amount as his brother, Peyton Manning was undoubtedly one of the greatest regular season quarterbacks we've ever seen. He had an incredible regular season resume to justify why, on top of winning 2 Super Bowls. Because in the playoffs, if you look at his playoff record, Peyton Manning was trash. Now, he did win 2 Super Bowls, but yeah, it was mostly the regular season. Eli doesn't have that. Eli, again, I don't think he was ever, in 1 year, I don't think he was ever considered a top 10 quarterback in the league ever for any year. I don't know, but I do think that he is going to eventually make it to the Hall of Fame. But I understand, and I don't think I would have even voted him first ballot, because nah, again, because we're only really talking now. Again, they were extreme and high moments, but we're really only talking about 2 moments, 2 games, 2 situations that's putting Eli Manning in the Hall of Fame. I don't think that. I say it like this. One criteria that I always have is, can I talk about the history of the league and leave you out? If I can leave you out talking about the history of the league, then you're not a Hall of Famer. I cannot leave out Eli Manning, but I for damn sure can have a long conversation about the league before I get to Eli Manning. So I do think he's a Hall of Famer. First ballot, nah. And clearly neither is the committee. So, and there you have it, man. That's been today's episode of the Unpopular Podcast. I truly appreciate you guys. If you want a Unpopular Podcast shirt, hoodie, sweater, long sleeve joggers, the link is in the description below. I have multiple colors, multiple different designs. Get your Unpopular Podcast merch today. Also, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm trying to get as many subscribers as I can. I appreciate all of you guys. If you like what you're listening, if you like what you're watching, tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to subscribe. It definitely means a lot. Also, same thing for my DSP listeners, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, wherever you get your DSPs. If you love hearing my luscious voice, please follow, please subscribe. It means a lot. No platform is more important than the other. I appreciate all of you guys. I need all of you guys if I'm trying to grow. So, again, all my DSP listeners, please follow or subscribe. Also, for my social media followers, whether that's Instagram, TikTok, please follow the social media. Please, I'm trying to I still put content out. I'm trying to get as many followers as possible so I can spread the Unpopular Podcast as wide as it can go. So whether that's TikTok, Instagram, if you want to get to me, that's probably the quickest way. You keep it respectful. I don't mind going back and forth in the comments because, it just means you're listening to me and you're passionate about whatever we're talking about. So please follow the socials. It means a lot. Until next time, much love.